Ladies and gentlemen, Andy here. I went from depressed and suicidal to living a life of abundance and joy. If I can do it, you sure as hell can too. Now, the big question on everybody's mind, why the hell am I off on the side instead of in the middle? So that I can do this. Oh, wow, look at that. So, got this comment on YouTube, and we'll go deep on this and answer a little bit of this question or this concern. So, Valentine Gutner 3793 says, worst rejections that I get by far are because of age. The first time a girl said that I, at 28, am too old for her at 22, I had a panic attack. Ever since that happened, every time I approach a girl, I'm afraid that she's going to ask for my age. I still don't know how to handle that. So the first thing that I will say is massive props for having courage to keep going. I think that's utterly incredible. I think it speaks to your courage. I think it speaks to your perseverance. Mad props. So you get a little clap for that. I think that's amazing. Now, I have like a million things that I can talk about here, and I'll be gentle with this podcast, but there's just a lot of stories that you're getting caught up in, and anybody else who's really scared of rejection, you're getting really caught up in a lot of your stories. You have a lot of stories around the word rejection, around this event that happened, around age, around all of this kind of stuff. And we're going to try and untangle that as best we possibly can. So the first thing that I'll start with is I have done so many pieces of content about the idea of rejection in general. So on my YouTube channel, you can literally just search on YouTube for Kill Your Inner Loser Rejection, and like 5 or 6 videos will come up. So this one is the first one that I would recommend that you watch, where I talk about stop focusing on rejection. A rejection of your offer is not a rejection of you. And so when you're worried about rejection, again, the question was, the worst rejections I get by far are because of age. You're focusing on the rejection or the word rejection as if this woman who said, hey, sorry, I have a preference, not even sorry, hey, I have a preference where I prefer people around about my age. My preference is people my age. You took it very personally. You took it as if she was rejecting you. But her saying, hey, I don't date people who are old, who are older than me, that's got nothing to do with you. But you're sort of internalizing it and making it this big thing as if it's all about you. And I mean that in a kind way, but it's got nothing to do with you. You're really not that special. She is stating her preference, and you're taking that as a personal thing. In other words, you have offered to her, would you like to go on a date with me? Or would you like to talk to me? Or would you like to give me your phone number? Whatever it is that you asked for. Would you like to talk to me now? And she has said, hey, I appreciate that offer, but no thank you. But you've instead taken it as a rejection of yourself. And guys often do this. I used to do this too in the early days. People do this. People take things as a rejection of them, as if the other human being is saying, you're invalid, you're unlovable, you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you. And you're putting all of that sort of stuff on yourself. She didn't say any of that. She literally just said, I don't want your offer. You're offering for me to talk to you? No, thank you. And you wouldn't be hurt and upset if you said to somebody, would you like to have a glass of water? And they said, no, thank you. You'd be like, oh, she just rejected the water. She said no to the water, but you're taking it as a very personal thing. So I would start with this video. I go deeper on this mindset. I talk all about that kind of stuff. The second video that I would recommend you watch is called You Secretly Want to Be Rejected. And I talk about all the ways that rejection can be a beautiful thing. You see, with the question here and with most people's framing of rejection, and people do the same thing with failure or the word mistakes, you're framing failure or rejection or mistake as if it's automatically a bad thing. You're making a very big assumption here that the idea of her saying no to you is a bad thing. What you can do, if you're willing to be brave, is you can kind of explore it. And you're clearly brave, or you wouldn't be going back out there and still continuing. What you can do is you can kind of explore the idea of how this could possibly be a good thing. How her saying no to you could be a good thing. Well, number one, you're spared. She has spared you from spending time with someone who isn't a good match for you. If she doesn't want to date someone who's older than her, she has given you a beautiful gift by saying no. Do you want her to say yes? Do you want her to say, sure, I don't like older guys, but I guess I'll go on a date so that you don't have to have a panic attack? I guess I'll just do what you want so that you don't have to be sad and feel hurt and rejected. Sure, I guess we can have sex because, whatever, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Is that kind? Would that be kind? No, that would be incredibly unkind. And so the most beautiful gift that she has given you is to state her preference and to speak with integrity and to say, no, thank you. This isn't what I want. Another thing that she's given you is she's showing you boundaries. Isn't it beautiful that she's showing you that she has boundaries and the ability to say no? That's amazing. We can learn from that. When somebody else says no to us, that is a beautiful gift. And you can view it as a gift. In my video course that I released recently, basically the entire video course is about changing your mindset to what we're talking about here. But I have an entire chapter called Everything That Happens to Me is Good. And the entire point of this chapter is I give you all of these different techniques of how to reframe this and see this as a potential good thing. In other words, how to find the silver lining in it. I have another chapter called Play to Win instead of Playing Not to Lose. And this entire chapter is about basically don't focus on rejections. What does a rejection matter? Someone said no to you. Why is that well, I know why it's in your head, but do your best to process that, heal that, move on from that, which you clearly are. You've literally said, I'm still going out there and talking to more women. I think that's amazing. Again, insane courage that you're showing. That's amazing. But focus on winning. Focus on finding the women who want guys your age. Why are you even thinking about the women who don't want someone your age? What has that got to do with? It's like, do you walk around thinking about women who are married? No, because they're married. You're not even thinking about them. If you walked up to a woman and she's like, oh, thank you so much, but I'm married, you'd be like, okay, cool, have a nice marriage, bye. And you'd walk away. You wouldn't be sitting there thinking, oh my God, I didn't get the married woman. Fuck, the married woman rejected me. You'd be like, no, she's married. Or if a woman was to say, hey, I really appreciate that, but I'm a lesbian. You'd be like, sweet, she's a lesbian. That's cool. I hope she has a beautiful life. I hope they're freaking scissor sisters together and have a beautiful time. But you wouldn't be thinking about her. But you're thinking about this woman who said, hey, listen, I have a preference for guys around about my age, which is all that was said. But you're taking that as a very personal thing. You're taking that as if something is wrong with you as a human being. As if one person not wanting someone your age means that you're invalid or you're bad or you're doing something wrong or you're creepy or you don't deserve women or you don't deserve happiness or something. You're telling this big fucking story that she didn't tell you. And even if she did tell you, that's her preference. Even if she said, hey, you're old and gross and you shouldn't talk to younger women. Hey, that's your opinion. That's beautiful. There's 1 million young women out there who want me to talk to them. I've said this a million times. My girlfriend Imogen, we met when she was 18 and I was 31. I'm 12 years older than her. Her preference is for older men. Literally, she doesn't date and would never date anyone even remotely around her age. She actively sought me out on Tinder. She had her age setting to older guys because she dated a few guys her age and she didn't want that. There are so many women out there that are like, hell yeah, I like older guys because they're, whatever reasons why, whatever preferences they have. This chapter in the video course as well, this is probably the most pertinent one. It's called Everything is a Story, and you're in control of the stories that you tell. Understand that with your question, you've told a story. The worst rejection that I got by far, the worst rejections I get are by age. That's a story. You could say the most beautiful rejections that I get by far are because of age, because isn't it amazing that women are telling me what they want? I love that they have boundaries. I love that they spare me from dating them if they don't want to date someone older. I love that they have honesty. I love that it frees me up to then go and find the women who do want an older guy, because there are so many women that don't want older guys. There are so many women that don't really care. They'll date an older guy, but they'll date a guy their age. They just don't really care. And then there are so many women that only date older guys. And then there are plenty of women that have a fucking fetish for older guys. The phrase daddy, spank me daddy, harder daddy. Literally there are women that's a fucking fetish. That's a fetish. I've dated enough of them at this point. My preference is 18 to 25-year-old women. That's predominantly the group that I date. I'll date older women if we happen to meet them, but it's pretty much that age bracket. It has been for the last 5 years. 10 years, 5 years, 5 years. So everything is a story, and you've been telling a story of how this rejection is awful. And, every time I approach a girl, I'm afraid that she's going to ask my age. That again is what I talked about before. We want to be playing to win, not playing to lose. Playing not to lose. When you're saying I'm afraid that she's going to ask for my age, that's playing not to lose. You're going, fuck, I hope I don't lose. I hope she doesn't ask for my age. Oh God, I hope this doesn't go badly. Don't worry about that. We're not here to worry about that. What do we care if she doesn't like your age? It doesn't even matter, and I'll try and say this in a gentle way. It doesn't even matter if you have a panic attack. I think you've been telling yourself that having a panic attack is a bad thing. And this is coming from someone who went through a long period of time after a psychedelic experience, about 9 months, where I had, for a little while, for the first like month or two, it was basically daily panic attacks in public, at home. Imogen went through the same thing. We had a wild, rough trip together and we had panic attacks. A panic attack doesn't have to be a bad thing. I went through that experience myself, or that mindset shift myself during that period of time where I was like, is a panic attack a bad thing? Like, I'm so afraid of having a panic attack, as if I've labeled a panic attack bad. But what actually happens when I have a panic attack? Well, my heartbeat goes crazy. I feel like I'm having a heart attack. My vision clouds. I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I have to sit down. I feel like it's not going to stop. I feel like it's going to get worse. I feel like I'm going to die. And then eventually it goes away. Can I handle each one of those little things? Yes, if I don't tell an extra story of how this shouldn't be happening or this is a bad thing. And so these concepts, I understand, might be a little bit advanced, but I really just recommend grabbing the video course. You can pay whatever you want for it, pay $1, but these 3 chapters that I've shown you especially, so everything that happens to me is good, play to win instead of playing not to lose, and everything is a story and you're in control of the stories that you tell. Those 3, if you can get even 1 or 2 of the concepts and start sort of applying them, oh my God, like your entire worldview will change. And then the final one that I recommend, okay, there's actually 2 I recommend. This chapter, Overcoming Fear, Limiting Beliefs, and Self-Doubt. Read this chapter. Like, I literally have what to do when you're afraid of, like, fuck, what if the next woman tells me that I'm too old? Or what if she asks me for my age? Like, this chapter is literally gently holding your hand, telling you everything's okay. You'll be okay. I promise it will be okay. Because right now, other than, with this question, other than what you're thinking and what you're believing, are you okay? Like, other than the thoughts in your head, are you okay? I'm assuming the answer is yes. You're not fucking dead. Your arm didn't fall off because a woman said you're too old for her. So you are okay. Other than the stories in your head and how you say, or you're worried that a panic attack is a bad thing. You're worried that, a girl saying that you're too old for her is a bad thing. Other than those thoughts, are you okay? Like, are you surviving? Are you healthy? Are you okay? Yes, you're okay. And so nothing bad ever happens other than a story or other than a fear. It's like that Winston Churchill quote, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Fear itself is the thing that's actually scary. All she said was, hi, you're too old for me. Thank you, though. And then all of the fears that come with that. And so what you can do, and I talk about this in this chapter, what you can kind of do is play it out to its logical conclusion. And again, to be clear, before I go into that, this whole chapter is holding your hand and saying, look, it's okay that you get scared. It's okay that you have fears. I hope this video today doesn't come across as me invalidating your fears or telling you not to have fears. No, that's like the opposite of my mindset. So it's beautiful that you have fears. They're here to teach you something. Like, think how resilient you will be on the other side of this. Think how much stoicism you will gain on the other side of this. Think what a fucking badass you will be if you continue to push through, which you already are. So you're already insanely courageous. But if you continue to push through this and come out the other side to where you're not afraid to have a woman tell you that you're too old. In fact, you embrace it and you love it because you're like, hey, isn't that fucking beautiful that she's telling me what she wants and what she doesn't want? Isn't that beautiful that she's teaching me boundaries? She's teaching me how to state your preference and not worry about the other person taking it badly. Man, these women are badasses. These women are fucking insane. I can't believe the assertiveness and the courage that they're showing. Man, I love these women. This is amazing. I can't wait to get, quote, rejected. And I don't use the word rejection because, again, she's not rejecting you. She's stating a preference. And I'll go more into that in a second. But I promise you can get to the other side of this. And that is my goal for all of you who are brave enough and willing enough to jump over that hurdle of thinking that rejection is a bad thing. Rejection is a bad thing if you say it's a bad thing. As I talk about in this chapter, everything is a story and you're in control of the stories that you tell. If you want to say that rejection is a bad thing, you can say that. That's a perfectly valid story. But I tell the story of how rejection is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. because it spares me from being with someone that wouldn't be a good match for me and doesn't want to be with me. Do I want to spend my time with people that don't want to be with me? No. Then rejection, and again, I don't call it rejection, but rejection is a beautiful thing. It's inevitable. There is no other choice but to be rejected, right? What's the alternative? Be with people that don't actually want to be with me and just do it because they know that I will have a panic attack if they don't? That's essentially, being locked in a prison with someone who doesn't want to be with me. And you're not stupid. Nobody's stupid. You will know that they don't want to be with you. And they just went along with it because they were worried that they would hurt you. That's not kind. That's not kind to you. That's not kind to them. So there is no choice but to be rejected. Your other alternative is that everybody just magically says yes to you and wants what you want. That's not fun. That isn't reality anyway, by the way. So you're never getting that. But you wouldn't even want that. For everybody to say yes to you and nobody to ever say no to you, that means everybody on the planet has to want what you want, which means they're not free-thinking individual people or human beings. They're all puppets or something. Like God or the universe made a bunch of people that will just say yes to you and nobody gets to say no. They're not alive. They're like robots. It's like you've been put in this weird, sick, twisted game where you're the only rational human being on the planet with free will and everybody else here is just here to serve you and say yes to you. That doesn't sound appealing. I don't think you want that. I think you would feel good at the start. Wow, everybody says yes to me. This is cool. And then I think after a couple of months, the magic of life would be gone. The challenge would be gone. You'd be like, this isn't fun. Why the fuck is everybody saying yes to me? And you would start to almost become psychopathic, I imagine. You'd probably start to fuck with people and go, okay, well, why is everybody saying yes to me and nobody's saying no to me ever? Nobody's ever telling me that I'm too old for them. Okay, fuck. Well, what about people? And you would just start fucking around and being psychopathic. You'd be like, what if I start doing psychopathic shit? What if I scream at someone and tell them they're an ugly piece of shit and then tell them to strip naked for me? Would they do that? And then they'd do that because everybody in that universe has to say yes to you. And they'd give you what you want. And you'd be like, okay, this is not fun. This is like some dark shit now. Is there no end to this? Are there no morals and ethics anymore? Is everyone just going to say yes to me no matter what? There has to be a line somewhere. Well, there is going to be a line somewhere where somebody says no to you for a specific reason. You have now found that line. And there's lots of lines, by the way. There's a million reasons why people say no to us. People have preferences. They're beautiful. There's a wide gamut of human preference. And that's beautiful. And so you actually want, which is why I put that in this title, you secretly want to be rejected. You want people to say no to you because the alternative is something horrifying. If nobody ever says no to you, that's fucking horrifying. You're the only person on the earth with free will. That's terrifying. I don't want that. You don't want that. So you want people to say no to you. So again, this chapter, I'll circle back to what I was going to say before. This chapter of the video course called Overcoming Fear, Limiting Beliefs, and Self-Doubt, what I do in this is, again, you're doing a good job. You're being insanely courageous. That's, the start of this chapter here. But I go through and I sort of think about what am I so afraid of, first of all? And basically, what story am I telling here? Understand that when you have this fear or when you had this reaction, and you didn't choose to have a panic attack, obviously, your body just had a panic attack. That's a beautiful thing. That's your body doing what it's going to do. But when your body had this panic attack, you had some stories or some thoughts or some beliefs in your head, and you just automatically assumed that they're true, because that's what we do. We assume that our thoughts are true until we actually check and investigate them. And so this chapter, again, called Overcoming Fears, Limiting Beliefs, and Self-Doubt, one of the first things I do is I investigate or question my fears to see if they're even true. Or maybe I'm just telling a story, or I'm over worrying, or I'm thinking about something that isn't necessarily true. In other words, I'm stressing myself out, perhaps needlessly. And so, you're likely telling some story here. So I would go deep on that, my friend. I would literally get out a pen and paper or type it on your computer or whatever. I would flesh out what bad thing happens if a woman says that I'm too old for her. And your first thought might be, well, I'll have a panic attack. Okay. What bad thing happens if you have a panic attack? Well, it will feel awful and I hate it. Okay. What bad thing happens if you feel awful and you currently hate something and then eventually you go through it? And you sort of just keep playing that out and asking yourself, what bad thing am I worried about? Or what bad thing will happen? And you can do the same with this. similar fear that you probably have, which is I'm worried that, it's not just that this one girl said that I'm too old for her, because that's just one woman on the planet having a preference. I don't like guys your age. Cool, great. That's your preference. That's amazing. I love that. Bye bye. I'm going to go talk to the next person, right? Like that's not a big deal. But you likely have a subconscious story, and I don't know what your stories are. That's why you need to investigate them, or you are allowed to investigate them. But you likely have some sort of story of, it's not just her, dude. What if every woman says this? Or what if a bunch of women say that I'm too old for them? Or what if a bunch of women get together and say, hey, this guy's out there harassing young women and like being polite and saying, hi, you're cute. Can I talk to you? Like, that's illegal. Like, he should go to jail. Like, you likely have these big stories and you're telling extra stuff. You're trying to predict the future, or your brain is predicting the future and worrying that something bad will happen. So write that shit down. As I talk about in this video course, fear is false evidence appearing real. You're telling a story of something, and this is what fear is. You're telling a story of something that hasn't even necessarily happened and probably won't happen. And so you can kind of go through that. And another quote I love is, anxiety or fear is interest paid on a debt we don't even owe yet. And so you're likely getting yourself all anxious and freaked out and, all of that kind of stuff because you just haven't checked yet. And that's what this is. And again, I really fucking admire your courage to even ask this question in the first place. We're just checking and we're seeing, wait, am I currently paying interest on a debt I don't even owe? Am I stressing about something that hasn't even happened yet? Like, what bad thing am I so worried about? One woman said, or a few women, it might be a few women, have just said, hey, I don't date older guys. What am I so afraid of? What interest am I currently paying on that? Like, what anxiety am I feeling for something that hasn't even happened? And it's likely what I said. It might be something like, what if every woman rejects me and says that I'm too old and I can never get a girlfriend and I'm all alone? Okay, then what? What are you so afraid of there? What, that you'll be alone? What would you do? This is another exercise you can do. What would I do if that bad thing, or that thing that I think is bad, actually ends up happening? So if no woman ever dated me and they all got together and said, this 28-year-old man shouldn't be talking to 22-year-olds, which, by the way, is not a big fucking age gap. That's such a small goddamn age gap. My parents are 6 years age apart. So congratulations. My parents have been together for like 40 years or something at this point. Might be longer than that. It's probably 40 years. And there's that age gap. My grandparents had that age gap. Imogen and I have like a 12-year age gap. Lots of the girls that we date are like 21, 22. So there's a big age gap. I'm 36. So that's a 14-year age gap. One of the girls that we've been seeing now for a year, I think she's 22, 21, 22. So that's a 14-year age gap. So it's not even a big age gap. But you're likely worried that no woman will ever date you and you'll end up alone. You can ask yourself, okay, then what would I do? Like, literally imagine that you're in that space, and this can be difficult sometimes, or it might be a little bit of a challenge, and that's okay. Take your time with this. Be patient and loving and kind to yourself. Be gentle with this. But if you can put yourself into that space or that headspace, you close your eyes and you imagine, okay, let's pretend that I'm like 40 years old now, and I've tried for the last 10 years to get a girlfriend, and somehow miraculously no woman on the planet will ever date an older guy, which is literally just not true, by the way. But like, no girl on the planet will ever date me, and I'm alone. I'm now 40 years old. Like, put yourself in that position mentally. Like, imagine that you're there. Now what? What do you do now? Like, literally play this exercise out. Pause this podcast right now, and anybody else who has a similar fear, pause it right now. And it could be a fear about anything else. It doesn't have to be dating. You don't have to be a guy. This applies to women too. But whatever you're most afraid of, try and put yourself in that position. Again, being gentle with this. And in that position, ask yourself, now what? Like, I'm here. My greatest fear came true. The thing that I was so terrified of and I wasn't even willing to look at, or I was too terrified to look at because it's so unbelievably just horrifically scary to me. It came true. I'm living in my supposed nightmare scenario. Now what? And pause the podcast and do this. Now what? And everybody that I've done this with, I can think of one guy in particular where he had an amazing reaction. Everybody I've done this with ends up just giving me some answers like, well, I guess I would work on my career. I guess I would sort of accept that nobody on the planet wants to be with me. And wait, maybe I would just date a woman my age. Maybe I would specifically go for women my age or older. And then I guess I would find love. Or I wouldn't find love and I'd build a career and I'd have friends and I get people to play out this exercise. I had one guy in particular who just started fucking bawling his eyes out and crying because he listed out all of the things that he would do if he never ended up finding a woman and having a girlfriend and getting married. And he listed everything out. And he was like, he just started crying. He was like, this is the most beautiful life that I could ever imagine. And I was like, yeah. And this is if your worst case scenario happens and the thing you're most afraid of ends up happening. And you're crying here with joy saying this would be a beautiful life. So a lot of the time we just never really check to see if our life would go to shit if this bad thing happened. And again, with the question here, you know, I'm having, or I had a panic attack and I'm terrified of having a woman tell me that I'm too old for her. Literally ask yourself, like, what would my life be like if she ever did? If like a bunch more women told me that I'm too old for them, what would I do? I'll tell you right now, you'll keep doing what you're already doing. You'll just keep, you'll go home, maybe you'll have a panic attack, maybe you'll cry for a little bit. And to be fair, to be clear, I did. In the first year or so of doing this stuff, I cried all the fucking time. I would go home and like punch my refrigerator until my knuckles were bleeding. Like mostly out of anger towards myself for having lived a complacent life. You know, for all of those years, I had so many emotions that just came out. I would bawl my eyes out. Sometimes I would cry until no more sound would come out. I would cry for hours, like hours. I would walk around sometimes for like 4 or 5 hours trying to talk to a woman, but just too petrified and too scared and not able to do it. And I would sit down and just start crying in public. Like I had all of these sort of emotions. So I understand these emotions, believe me, I really do. But what's going to happen is you're going to go out there and keep trying. You know, maybe you go home and you cry for a couple of days and then you go back out there because this is clearly something that's very important to you. This is clearly something that you want. And so there isn't really a choice here. I mean, there's always a choice, but what I mean there is it's inevitable that you'll succeed. You don't have a choice in succeeding or not. Like you're already a success. You are already succeeding. You're already being the person that you want to be. You're already the insanely courageous, brave, unbelievably legendary human being that you probably envision that you'll be in the future. You're already that person now. You're already doing the thing. You're already succeeding. All that's left now is to keep walking that path. And that's the bit where you don't really have a choice because you're already that person. You're already the person who walks the path. So you're just going to keep going. And you might have breaks here and there. You might have breakdowns here and there. You might have panic attacks. You might have moments where you cry. You might have moments where you're sad. You might have moments where you think, I can't do this. But at the end of the day, you're going to fucking do this thing. You're already doing it. And all that's left now is to keep walking this path, my friend. You're already a winner, man. Just keep going. And guess what? Because you're an absolute legend and you stuck around to the end, you get to hear about my amazing one-on-one coaching deal that I'm offering just for a limited amount of time. Oh my God. That's right. I'm offering one-on-one coaching with me and access to my group coaching program. You get to sit down with me and do a one-on-one call every single week, as well as a group coaching call every single week. You get access to me every single day. You can send me messages. I will get in there. I will build you that amazing life that you have been dreaming of, whether that's sex, whether that's dating, money, relationships, happiness, peace, whatever it might be that you want. Let's make it happen together. And if you pay in full, you get an extra 4 weeks instead of the usual 3 months. Here is just a little bit of what some of our clients have achieved. Taylor had a threesome, tons of sex, embraced honesty with girls he's dating, embraced peace and love, and he's a coach in our program too. Laz, look at this handsome guy, and I'm not just saying that because he's bald. He more than doubled his monthly income, earning $45K a month. He had a ton of sex, embraced honesty, and did so much more. Corky had a threesome, sex with 7 women. We helped him start his own business, and he learned to love himself. And look at that cool BDSM picture. Legend. All of that and more is yours for $20,000, and we have payment plans as long as you pay $10K up front, and we can negotiate the rest of the payment plan. Link in the description below. Click that, mention that you want one-on-one coaching, and let's do something amazing together. Limited time only. This is the only time I'm going to offer this. Let's go, baby.